So you've probably all heard the classic dating advice, which is, just be yourself. So I kind of want to just think about that and sort of analyze that a little bit and think about, the validity of that. Because, like traditionally, it's like you take like a guy who's inexperienced or just not having much success. Maybe he would ask some girls like, oh, have you got any tips for me for dating, etc. Or how can I meet girls, that kind of thing. And then the kind of stereotypical reply is something like, oh, just be yourself. So is that actually genuinely useful advice, or is it just a load of bullshit? The thing is, with a lot of this stuff, it's all very, very nuanced, and there's a lot to kind of unpack. In my opinion, I think that essentially you don't really have a choice but to be yourself whenever you're kind of going into an interaction or on a date with a girl. You have to be yourself. You don't really have a choice, because even if you're trying not to be yourself, it's not going to work out anyway. Like, I've seen it before actually, where like a guy is doing a street interaction and he's using canned lines, he's using scripted lines, or he's kind of trying to copy the persona of someone else that he's seen doing it, like on YouTube, or another coach or someone else, whatever. And it kind of stimulates the girl's interest initially, but then, and perhaps even they go out on a date later, but then the girl just very, very quickly loses interest because there's an incongruency, because the guy hasn't been able to keep up with this particular persona that he portrayed earlier, and he's back to being himself again. And the girl's just like, what the hell's going on here? This is a bit weird. This isn't the same person that I thought I was meeting earlier. So in essence, you have to be yourself. You don't really have a choice in that sense. What you can do, however, is that yes, you have to be yourself, but you can decide what yourself will be. So just because you are yourself right now, and maybe you have some weaknesses or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to remain that way. So let's say, for example, you are a very logical guy, and you go into your interactions and you have very, very kind of logical conversations, maybe even a bit boring, a bit flat, etc. That doesn't necessarily mean that that is how it has to be forever, and you're stuck that way because you're being yourself. You're being true to who you are. Maybe you're quite a logical guy, an analytical guy. You work in a job which is quite sort of methodical and logical, etc. And that's essentially who you are. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't sort of, work on that aspect, or you can't sort of stray from that. Unless, of course, you wanted to remain that way, that's different, If you just wanted to remain that way and you're perfectly happy like that and you wouldn't change it for anything, then that's absolutely fine, But yeah, if you wanted to work on that, that's something that you can change. So just because you are being yourself doesn't mean you're stuck that way forever. Another example is, say for example, you wanted to be more funny and you're quite a serious person at the moment, and that's who you are, and of course you're happy with who you are right now, but you wish you would potentially be a bit funnier, perhaps a bit more charismatic at times. That's again something that you can work on. It's going to feel a little bit unnatural to incorporate some of these stuff into conversations. If you're the sort of person who's like never had banter before, or like very rarely makes jokes even with your friends, and you're always in that kind of serious mindset, even though that if you're having an initial conversation, for example, with a girl, that having humor, bringing in humor into the conversation is actually going to dramatically help you, and it's something that you wish you could actually implement, then yeah, you can. That's something that you can genuinely work on. It's about shifting your mind state and actually allowing yourself to do it. It's going to take time, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's like essentially you're trying to kind of transform your who you are, essentially, aspects of your personality. So yeah, it's definitely still possible. It's not like you are how you are right now and you're stuck that way. So that's kind of the key point. Like if I look at myself, when I first started out with this stuff, I would have, for example, I would go out on dates and I would be talking about just pointless shit, like, my favorite films, my favorite TV shows, my favorite episode of Lost, and I was thinking I was having this really cool and interesting conversation. but the girl is sitting there like, oh fucking hell, this is so boring. So I was being myself and I was being true to who I was, but then I kind of realized actually this is kind of, you know, not particularly stimulating for the other person. And so yeah, it's partly a development. So from then on, you know, I started focusing on other things, other ways to kind of optimize what I was doing, because again, that's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be that person who was a bit more kind of well-rounded and a bit more kind of sexual on dates, rather than just being stuck on these like very kind of platonic conversation topics. You know, that's something that I wanted to do, and so therefore you could say that my personality, or who I was, me being myself, kind of adapted and evolved over time. So it's something that you can do. It's not like, as I say, it's not like you are how you are now and that's it, you know, that you can never improve, but you can actually, you know, incorporate some of these things and change some stuff, evolve, adapt, etc. It will take time though, so don't expect this stuff to happen like overnight. Like, you know, even, you know, if you take like a complete beginner who's absolutely brand new to day game or even dating, he's not going to get good at it in like a week. You know, it's not going to happen. It's going to take many months at least, if not years. So yeah, that's it. You know, it's something that takes radical change and, you know, radical you know, amounts of time. The thing is like, you know, if you take like a brand new person and get him to do day game, he's going to be doing it as himself. You know, he's going to be you know, putting himself out there, and inevitably he's going to be himself. And there's going to be aspects which he will be trying to improve upon, but it's just going to take a long time, because you're essentially asking him to kind of change his personality, change who he essentially is, you know, change the way that he's coming across when he's meeting a new person. That stuff can really take a long time. And, you know, even if you do like one coaching session, it's not like you're going to radically change your entire personality. It's really just the very kind of initial foundation. It's really just the first step. But yeah, it's just something that you can gradually work on, you know, as time goes on. But it does take time, but obviously the rewards are there, and it's actually down to you, you know, to decide who you want to be. Because, you know, like you can do like coaching, and then, you know, the coach might tell you like, oh yeah, you need to have more sexual conversations, you need to be funnier, more charismatic, etc. But ultimately that's something you have to decide, whether that's actually what you want for yourself in the end. It's like, yeah, you will probably appeal to a wider pool of women that way, but is that fundamentally who you want to become? Is that who you want to be? And that's a question that you have to ask for yourself, because that's a decision only you can make, because there's no right or wrong with this stuff. You know, it's all down to you and what you want to do and who you want to be.
Cheers for watching. If you'd be interested in one-to-one coaching with me, where we'll go out in public and work on you approaching girls, or more generally with your social confidence, please visit my website ed-game.com.